16 minutes after 7 o'clock. After 7 long years, Tiger Brands has finally reached a settlement agreement in that class action lawsuit brought against them over the devastating Listeriosis outbreak. It claimed 218 lives. Over 1,000 people were affected. And of course, it was traced back, the outbreak, to their Enterprise Foods facility in Polokwane. The aftermath has been catastrophic for many families. Medical bills piled up, but also emotional trauma from physical effects and impacts that perhaps may never heal. We've invited the National Health Minister, Dr. Motsoaledi, to join us to discuss about where we are and what happens next. But I want to remind you of my conversation and perhaps also alert the Minister with a distraught mother in October last year whose daughter was severely affected by the impact. She contracted listeriosis when she was still in her mother's womb in 2017, 2018, and this was the life she was living.
When I was pregnant, I was craving Polony all the way, Polony, Vienna, Russians. So yeah, I'll drive from the house that we were staying in because it was next to Tiger Brand Enterprise Polokwane. So I'll drive and buy those ready-to-eat food and eat them, not knowing that they are contaminated. And those are the foods that caused listeriosis to my child. We were hoping for an interim assistance, maybe the medical assistance, but Tiger Brand is refusing. They are not willing to give us any medical expenses. When Teto was born, we were happy as a family, just like any other kid who brings joy in the family. Not knowing that 18 days later, that will be the hardest journey of our life. Because to date, Teto has 6 operations of inserting the VP shunt in the brain. She had convulsions, she had seizures, and as a result, we ended up having so many deaths. We ended up selling the house because the money was too much for us. For now, she cannot control her bowels.
This was the story of one family, but yet there are many others. Minister Motsoaledi is now on the line. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Bongani. Good morning to the listeners.
You're one of the first or key figures, I should say, who alerted us to the listeriosis outbreak 7 years ago. The impact was obviously devastating. Do you believe this offer of a settlement by Tiger Brands will bring some relief to the families?
Well, I haven't seen exactly what is contained in the offer, Bongani. I haven't, but true, it was very devastating. And I must state the heroes here were our doctors and the National Health Laboratory Services. They are the ones who called our attention to this fact, because Listeria monocytogenes or listeriosis has always been there, but it was taking a new turn this time around, where they were seeing many more infections which they are not used to. And they alerted us. We checked with the National Health Laboratory Services. They confirmed that actually the numbers are going very high. That's when we suspected we have got an outbreak. We called the experts in the form of the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, and they agreed that is an outbreak, and that's why we banned such foodstuffs. And the NICD started investigating. And after a long investigation of checking all the food outlets, they eventually discovered that it is the Enterprise factory in Polokwane. Indeed, Tiger Brands did come to me and said, look, they think they must settle this matter. That was that time long ago, 7 years ago. I was very happy. In fact, I advised them that I was going to approach them because we had just settled another matter, a class action matter, if you remember, in the mines, the issue of TB and the problems that mine workers get in terms of silica dust, silicosis, silica dust that is causing problems in the mines. And we settled that very well, and people were happy. We're still busy paying, and I thought Tiger Brands will do the same thing. Unfortunately, I don't know even up to today why they reneged and wasted time. They are now emerging again to say they'll settle, but the lawyers who settled the class action in the mines, fortunately, are the same lawyers
Yes.
that are representing these present plaintiffs. And I think they are very highly experienced, and they know how we settled in the mines. And I think they will settle in the interest of the patients.
What's the role of the department when it comes to something like this? You've already mentioned, of course, the role of key institutions like the NICD, for example, that was able to trace the outbreak to this factory in Polokwane. But once something like this happens, what's your role as the department?
Well, our role as a department, we are custodians of the whole healthcare system. Firstly, we wanted to check where the problem is, and we discovered it. The second step is to see how we stop it from even ever happening again. And you put things into perspective to make that happen. But thirdly, the welfare of the people who suffered, the patients. I heard you mentioning about the mother who suffered even medical cost. I thought in our case, we'll have taken to our institutions, especially the big teaching hospitals, which has got professors in all, in all spheres. Because as I listen to her, I think she was going to the private sector, where only money and money talks and nothing else. But in our case, as custodians of the healthcare system, we are forced to help everybody, and we are still willing to do so even now. The other thing we were going to do is that the litigators were asking us of the files, because Tiger Brands really wants a proof beyond proof, Bongani, which is very painful. Remember, let me take you back. When NICD made this diagnosis, they didn't believe it. Maybe because they believe it's in a small country in an African continent. They didn't believe that they can have such a skill to determine exactly up to the last serotype what has happened. They went to France. They looked for a private laboratory in France, in Europe, and made them start the test again. Those tests were confirmed in France in a laboratory chosen by them. They said NICD is right. This is exactly what has happened and what's happening. So we still don't understand why they are delaying, but understand the next step is they want the patients to prove that they were actually infected by the same serotype. That's where we come in. If the patients themselves allow us to give out their files, because I'm sure you are aware there's an issue of POPIA here.
Yeah.
To release somebody's confidential information, you need their permission. And if they give us that permission, we'll release their files.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to get into the details of a case, the specific details of a case you may not be familiar with, but we, as the show, tried to assist this family and try to link them up with a number of institutions, mostly, in fact, public. And, it's been a long, drawn-out process, just for your information there.
Can you contact me about that, Bongani? Sorry, can you contact me, because I don't understand.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't understand why it should be a problem. We've got many institutions that are world class, like as I told you, the NICD, for instance. So we have to help.
Sure, we can certainly do that off air. Could this have been prevented?
The listeriosis.
Correct.
Perhaps we could say, because I'll tell you what happened, Bongani. The Constitution gives certain functions to a local government level, and it so happened that the National Health Act passed in 2003. This work of food testing and has been given to district municipalities, but many of them are struggling. That's why at the moment we are still engaged in a process of making sure that we change that law, and the people we call health inspectors come back to the Department of Health, because at the moment, in terms of the law, they must be hired by district municipalities. According to me, many of them call it an unfunded mandate. According to me, it will be very, very, very difficult for municipalities to do that work, even if the law gave it to them, because many of them are struggling with their core functions, which is refuse removal, roads, water, and all that. So for them to get into health, they will just find it as something that is not theirs, and I think that's what's happening. And if that act did not change in that way, perhaps something will have been done. Health inspectors might have picked this sometimes back.
All right, maybe a push for a change in the law. Minister, I've been on my best behavior. We agreed with your team. We'll focus on this issue, which is why we wanted you on the show. But can I get an agreement for you to come back? There are so many other pressing matters, including, of course, the state of health, particularly in the Gauteng province, the issue of doctors that are unpaid, doctors that are not placed, allegations of patients going hungry. Will you commit to come back to us soon and speak to us about all of those matters?
Oh, yes, I will. Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Definitely. Thank
Minister
you very
of
much.
Health,
I'm committed. Yeah.
Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. You will be hearing then from him in the next few days as we catch up on all the other issues we've been covering when it comes to health in Gauteng.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.